Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, jambo, bienvenidos. Hi, my name is Jedley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We are coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so happy that you're part of our beautiful Reading with Your Kids family. Please be sure to subscribe to the show on the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you find your podcast. Our guest today is Farhan Khalid. He is here to celebrate Cars Go Vroom. Hey, before our guest comes in, we gave a sneak preview of the Solve It for Kids podcast here on Reading with Your Kids, and it was so popular, it's like spun off. It spun off into its own thing, and my buddy, our dean of all things STEM and STEAM, Jennifer Swanson, is here to tell us a little bit about what's going on with this great new podcast. Hey, Jennifer, what's up?
Hi, Jed. Oh, I am so excited about our new podcast. We've been getting some great reviews. Everybody wants to find out what's going on and meet and listen to some of our scientists and engineers. We have done how do you map an underwater forest?
Yeah.
We have done how do you cut a person in half safely, of course.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
We have talked about improving your connection with water by going on a water walk, and we have watched Vanessa Brantley Newton create illustrations that come to life.
I took a water walk with my amazing niece. We had such a great time. I didn't fall into the water, but it was really, really fun. And I love the fact that all of our guests are giving our wonderful listeners challenges, really fun challenges that they can do together as a family. And that's so cool. Hey, tell everybody where they can find Solve It for Kids, because it's not on the Reading with Your Kids podcast. It's its own thing.
So please, if you want to keep listening, go over to iTunes and Apple Podcasts and subscribe. And you can download all 4 of the first episodes that we have, plus listen to all the new ones we have coming out. You can also find on Stitcher Radio and, of course, through our website, solveitforkids.com.
Jennifer, thanks so much. Thanks for letting me be part of this awesome, awesome, awesome podcast.
Well, we make a great STEM team, don't you think?
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, join us over at solveitforkids.com. Joining us right now from the beautiful area of Chicago. I guess you guys call it Chicagoland. He's coming back to the show. He's the author of a great new book for toddlers called Cars Go Vroom. Please welcome back to the show, Farhan Khalid. Farhan, how are you?
Hi, Jed. I'm doing great. Thanks for having me back on.
I had such a wonderful time. If you've been listening to the show for a while, you know that Farhan has been on a couple of times. And I had the pleasure of meeting him in person out at Chicago Kids Expo just a few months ago. To be honest with you, it seems like a lifetime ago since, because it was right after Kids Expo that the pandemic hit, and we went into lockdown. So 3 months seems like 3 years, but we had such a great time at that event, and it was so wonderful meeting you and your family at that event.
Likewise, I was glad to meet you in person, and the Kids Expo, hopefully it gets back to normal and they run it again, but I highly recommend parents go there and check it out.
Yeah, that's one of the great things. There are a lot of opportunities for families to go out and get together, a lot of events like the Kids Expo that you can do with the whole family. We saw you have very little ones, and so there's lots for them to see and to touch and to hear. There are a lot of families that find it a challenge to do things together because they'll have kids from 2 years old to 12 or 16. And an event like the Chicago Toy Fair or Kids Expo, it's just a way for, there's something for everybody, and it's just a great opportunity to hang out together and to spend time together as a family.
Exactly, I agree.
Yeah. So tell me all about Cars Go Vroom. I'm just picturing this in my head, reading this book and driving my wife crazy by making all the different noises and everything. Am I right? Is that something we can do with this?
Yeah, exactly, and that's part of the fun with it. So just to step back a little bit, the last time I was on, we had talked about another book called Wally's World Tour. Mm-hmm. And after that time, I had a bit of a hiatus with writing. I did write another book shortly after that, and then had a bit of a hiatus to prep myself. But that was a rhyming book called A Tale of Two Cookies. And then from there, I did a couple of ghostwriting projects. I didn't really write too much after that. But then during this lockdown, with the COVID lockdown, I got inspired to write again. So I decided I'm going to write another rhyming book for kids. And it's called Cars Go Vroom, as you stated. It's a rhyming book for toddlers. And it's pretty simple. It's pretty short. It's meant for little kids, roughly, let's say, ages 1 to 4. So mainly meant for parents to read to their kids. Mm-hmm. But it might also be suitable for early readers. Yeah. It is about cars, obviously, as you can tell from the title. And it's just a fun rhyming book where just each page has a rhyme. It has hand-drawn illustrations that I did myself. And at the same time, I didn't want it to just be fun, but I wanted it to be like a teaching tool. So it'll teach things like sounds, as like you were doing it, colors, sizes, shapes, numbers, etc. So as I'm reading it to my son, for example, who's now 2.5, let's say I get to the page where there's a red car and a blue car. I'll ask him, which one is the red car? Mm-hmm. Which one is the blue car? Which one has 4 doors? Which one has 2 doors? So it makes it educational as well.
Yeah, and that's, we keep saying here on the show that parents are the most important teachers. You are your kid's most important teacher. And some people come back to me and say, but what if they're not doing a great job being a teacher? And I say, well, they're still the most important. Unfortunately, they're not giving the kids a great lesson. Reading a book like Cars Go Vroom, as you just shared with us, it's a great opportunity to teach shapes, to teach colors, to teach numbers. And when we're asking our kids questions, especially when they get a little bit older and we ask them what they think about the story, we're really empowering them. We're letting them know that the person they look up to the most, their dad, their mom, their caregiver, is interested in their opinion. That's an incredibly empowering lesson for kids.
Exactly, yeah. And you had a guest on recently where I would echo what she had said. Even just reading to your babies, there is benefit in that. Mm-hmm. And what she had mentioned, like brain connection, that in their learning, even though you can't really witness it at that age, but it's still good. And aside from the learning, there's of course the bonding too, just sitting there with them and reading. So definitely lots of benefits of reading to kids, no matter how young they are.
Now, we've talked on the show about the benefits of rhyming books versus other books. Do you just like writing rhyming books, or was there more to it than that in your choice?
Yeah, great question. So when my son was little, there were a couple of books that I read commonly. I started reading them when he was just 3 months old, and a couple of the books that we had received as gifts, one was called Goodnight Moon, and the other one is called the Going to Bed book. And I just read those a lot to him, and I have to admit, those just being simple, being fun, it just inspired me to actually write a rhyming book myself. Even though in the past I would never have thought to write a rhyming book. So as I did, I realized how fun it is. It's also a good challenge too, trying to come up with logical rhymes that make sense and are still fun, and at the same time not too wordy or too using big words that kids won't understand. So it's a good challenge to a good writing exercise.
Yeah, absolutely. It is very challenging, and it's also there's a real benefit too, because one of the things that we find with rhyming books, kids can sense that rhythm, the musicality of a book, exactly. And then they can start predicting it's, cars go vroom, and they can finish it and get a sense that they're reading it themselves.
Exactly. I think the repetition does help. So I do, there is a lot of repetition, and I purposely, with cars, obviously with the letter R, and the letter R is hard for little kids to say, but just having that repeated throughout the book, I'm hoping just hearing it often will just start to help build that, the ability to pronounce the letter R. So hopefully they'll hear it and then they'll try to repeat it.
You know, my friend, rumor has it the people in Boston have a hard time pronouncing the letter R. I don't know.
Yeah, I've heard that.
But it seems like every time you watch a movie with characters based in Boston, it's like, hey, what? And they're right, because I used to speak like that.
Yeah, it's a fun stereotype.
It is. You also told me that you added a little bit of lesson of diversity to this book.
Yeah, and it's funny because when I started to write this book, I didn't have that in mind. It wasn't part of the original plan. But as I was writing this and coming up with all of these rhymes, it just hit me that, wow, there's a lot of writing cards, whether it's their sizes or colors or shapes. There's two-wheel drive, there's all-wheel drive. And then I was thinking there's kind of a parallel to humans. And we're also as diverse, if not more diverse, than cars are. And if there's like a red car and a blue car, it doesn't mean one's better. A sports car and an SUV doesn't mean one's better. It's just kind of somebody's preferences and needs. And likewise with people, we are very different, but it doesn't mean that somebody's better than another person. We're just different. Mm-hmm. And it just makes the world much more interesting. Same thing with cars. If we were all driving the same car of the same color, it would be pretty boring, I think. It's just, go ahead.
No, I said it would be very boring and very confusing too. My wife, she walked up to the wrong car the other day. Yeah. But I think that's a great lesson. And I think it's a really important lesson. And man, it's never too early to teach our kids that lesson.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I just ended it with that subtle message. I mean, just like cars are different, people are different, and we're all special. All cars are special. So yeah, I was glad to be able to get that in there as just a bit of a bonus, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's obvious getting to know you and getting to know your books. These character messages, these character lessons are important to you. Mm-hmm. It's you're obviously an intelligent, talented person, but you're also passionate about helping kids become great, caring people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I appreciate that for the kind words. Thanks for that. I do try to have diverse characters. Obviously, in this book, there aren't any people characters, but in previous books, Bilal and the Big Bully and Wally's World Tour, I did make sure that the main characters are minorities, and just wanted to kind of build that diversity and make other kids aware that there is diversity in the world, mm-hmm. as well as help minority kids understand, that they are special too, and that they can also be the protagonist in the story.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, getting back to Kids Expo, that was one of the wonderful things about that event in particular. It was the audience at that event was very diverse.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah,
it was really wonderful. Now you're an interesting author in that you have tackled a number of different genres. You've written middle grade, toddler books. And as I recall, this wasn't your life passion. It wasn't something that you went to school for. You've kind of, I don't know if fallen into it is the right word, but I don't think it was something that you set out to do from a young age.
Correct. I mean, I got a business degree. I didn't intend to go into writing as a career, but I did always like writing because I'm an introvert, and I just felt that writing gave me a chance to actually think out what I want to say, revise what I want to say, and try to make it eloquent as I could. So I liked writing as a method of communication. And then at some point in my life, I thought, someday I'd like to write a book. It was just kind of on my bucket list. So eventually I did, and that was a nonfiction book for adults. And, I never thought I'd write children's books. But so I did that nonfiction book. Then eventually I wrote more of a young adult book, which is also nonfiction, about tigers and tiger conservation. Mm. And then what happened is somebody that I know in my Toastmasters club, he kind of challenged me, like, why don't you write a kid's book? So I thought about it, and eventually I did write one. And it's like once you get inspired or challenged or motivated, that spark of creativity, just once it hits, then you just kind of run with it. And here I am.
That's what a wonderful gift that whoever it was that challenged you. What a wonderful gift that person gave you.
Yeah, exactly. It's just how life is. Sometimes these doors of opportunities open. You just have to just take it and do what you can with it.
Yeah, and I think it's a good reminder to the rest of us that we may be the one that sees something in someone that they either don't see themselves or are afraid to acknowledge. And just a gentle, kind word or suggestion or a challenge can really change that person's life.
Exactly, yeah. And that's actually a good message. I mean, sometimes you see a talent in a person that they might not acknowledge for themselves, but if you can encourage them, maybe they can take it and do something with it. And it doesn't have to be for making money or gaining fame or anything like that. It could just be a fun side project, or it could be something that does get big and makes a difference in the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, and if you're an older sibling and you're listening to this, and you might tell your friend, "Hey, I think that person really likes you. You should ask them out. They'll probably go out with you."
Yeah.
Tell me, so you've written the whole spectrum from a nonfiction adult book to a YA book, a middle grade book, a toddler book, a board book. What's been the biggest challenge for you?
Good question. I think once I get inspired to write something, then that motivation is there, and I just kind of go. It's just the ideas come, and I just try to get it down on paper. I would say the challenge hasn't so much been writing, it's more the marketing of the books. And that part of that might just be with me being an introvert. I probably don't get out there as much as I should to really market the books, but I would say that's the biggest challenge.
Yeah. Now, you've done something that we've heard of, in that you've ghost written. What was that? You don't have to tell us what it was, but what was that experience like, and how did it differ from writing your own work?
Well, it was interesting because I had to put myself in that person's shoes, think about their life experiences, because in this case, the two stories I did ghostwrite, it was a very specific situation. It was somebody who was a refugee to this country, and they wanted something for their population. And I didn't really know much about that community, so it was really talking to that person, understanding their life, their experiences, and trying to take that to heart, so being empathetic, and then kind of putting myself in that mindset. So if I was this character, if I was this parent, how would things be? So kind of thinking along those lines, and also just having to do some research to learn what are the common names in that culture, what are the common foods they eat, so I can actually, make it seem like it was written by that person, not by, somebody like me who might be considered an outsider to that culture. So it's a really interesting experience and an educational experience.
That's, I'm thinking, what a wonderful way, especially now where travel is not an option for most people at the moment. What a great way to get out there and to meet folks from different communities and to learn about how other folks live around the world. And what a great way to challenge our own kids who, our middle school kids, our high school kids. Write a story about someone from another culture. Find someone, sit down, get to know them, talk to them. Getting that research to write stories. It's I'm imagining you must have had a really fun, fascinating time doing that.
Yeah, it was an adventure, and likewise, even if someone's not writing a book, just sitting down with someone and learning about their culture, it's fascinating. Yeah. And you learn, one of the most fun parts for me is learning about the foods of different cultures, because I am a bit of a foodie, so just kind of learning what are their desserts. And I have a big sweet tooth, so once I read about those, then I'm tempted to want to try those.
Now, did you discover a favorite dessert in the experience of ghostwriting?
I read about some desserts. I haven't gotten to try them yet because in the Chicagoland area, I'm not even sure where I would go to find those. But if I ever do find a restaurant, I'd love to try some of those out.
That's awesome. Well, I have to ask, do you have a project that you're working on now?
Not one that I'm actively working on. One thing I was thinking about is that, so I liked the last two rhyming books that I wrote. I liked those projects. I thought they were fun. And with the the most recent one, Cars Go Vroom, since I did the illustrations by hand, I thought that was a good challenge too, because I consider myself a writer, not necessarily an artist, but it was just a fun challenge. And I think I would like to do another rhyming book and probably do hand-drawn illustrations again. I'm thinking because Cars Go Vroom, it wasn't intentionally targeted towards boys, but I think just in general, boys like cars more. So I was thinking maybe next time, what if I did a story more targeted towards girls, or at least make it gender neutral. This is what appeals to all kids.
Excellent.
But again, no specific idea in mind, just that general idea.
I'm wondering, do you ever feel challenged since you're really enjoying these rhyming books? Do you feel any challenge to write a song by any chance?
I haven't thought about it. I mean, probably not. I think that's a little different because then you have to have the tune in mind, and I don't think I really have that musical mindset. I think that's a whole different talent.
Well, tell everybody where they can find you online so they can find out about all the different things that you're doing.
Sure. My website is heyiwroteabook.com, and likewise my Twitter and Instagram handles are at heyiwroteabook.
We've had a great time speaking to our friend Farhan Khalid. Be sure to check out his new book, Cars Go Vroom. Farhan, thanks so much for being part of the show.
Yeah, thanks again for having me back on. It was awesome.
Please be sure to join us for the next episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Our guest will be our friend Leslie Wall. She'll be here to share with us some great books that we can read together with our tweens and teens this summer. That's the next episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. If you are the author of a fantastic children's book, we would love to have you as a guest on the show. Being a guest, it's fun, it's easy, and it gives you the chance to tell thousands of people about your fantastic book. All you need to do is go to our website, readingwithyourkids.com. Click on the contact button that you will find at the bottom of the page. Let us know about your great books. We will let you know the next easy steps. Want to thank the folks who made today's show so very wonderful. Of course, we want to thank our guest, Farhan Khalid. Please be sure to check out Cars Go Vroom. Also want to thank my incredible team, starting with my amazing producer, Fatima Khan. I want to thank my awesome author ambassador, Peggy Cotto. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. But most of all, I want to thank you. I really do. You are the reason that we do this show, to bring you some great books that you can read with your kids. I also want to thank you for taking the time to make the world a better place, and you do that every time you read with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.